Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.
Welcome to all.
History is made of stories.
In this episode, we'll be talking about risk, uncertainty, and danger.
In a world of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, which has given us the acronym VUCA, we're told we have to adapt to an unpredictable future. That specter of uncertainty gives substance to fads and trends, like agile and responsive management.
Still, risk management is a long-practiced art. So, what are we talking about? Risk, uncertainty, and danger. What's the story?
When you cross the street without looking, the danger is the car. The risk is that you'll be knocked down. Risk and uncertainty are two concepts that lead to fear. Fear of the danger. If the car is the danger, then crossing the street without looking is risky.
Or foolish. Which leads us to how we think about danger. Certain, likely, or inconceivable.
Danger is not always certain. Asterix was always afraid the sky would fall on his head, but that's obviously not going to happen. That kind of fear is irrational. But imagine the sky really did fall on our heads. That would really hurt.
Hurt is an understatement. Luckily, as you say, the chances of it happening are pretty slim. But we're talking about two different things, the likelihood of something happening and the consequences if it ever did happen. And all too often, the fear of the consequences can cloud our assessment of the likelihood.
So, what we have to focus on is the probability of something actually happening, in order to make an informed decision on how to adapt to that risk. Although admittedly, we don't usually make a distinction between the risk and the degree of uncertainty related to that risk.
The two concepts are connected. The risk is a sort of predictable uncertainty. We can assess risk based on probability because the situation is something we're aware of. It's something we can foresee happening, something we can grasp, something backed by statistics, no matter how approximate.
We can sometimes see bad weather coming by holding a finger to the wind, but when it comes to the sky falling on our heads, there's not much we can do. Risk and uncertainty. The risk of bad weather and the pure uncertainty of having the sky fall on our heads. The former can be assessed. It's within the realms of the foreseeable. The latter cannot. It's truly beyond our understanding. We can't even begin to consider the likelihood of it happening. Risk is probable. Uncertainty is improbable.
It all comes down to making the right decision. Effective risk management can sometimes help us make that decision. If the weather forecast tells me there's a good chance of rain, then the smart thing to do is take an umbrella. But what about uncertainty?
That's the problem. We can't really picture things that are uncertain or hazy, which leaves us with two situations. On the one hand, we've got something we can picture or imagine, even if we have trouble providing any real level of detail. On the other, we've got something that's beyond our understanding, something inconceivable. We've basically got something that's conceivable and something that's inconceivable.
For things that are conceivable, even if we can't gauge the likelihood of their happening, we can at least tell ourselves they could happen. We can picture the possible, whereas for things that are totally inconceivable, we can't do the same. So, what should we do?
We can use forecasting for risks we can predict, and forward planning for those we can't predict but which we see as a possibility.
And what do we do about those we don't see as a possibility? Do we just sit on a bench, look at the sky and patiently wait for it to fall on our heads? Of course we don't. We enjoy that sunset, but then we get up and move on, accepting that some things are beyond our control.
There's no point trying to simulate something that's irrational. We just need to accept it as part of the problem. Accept the existence of uncertainty. Take a risk, the risk of living with things that are beyond our control.
To recap, risk is a form of predictable uncertainty for which we can assess the likelihood of occurrence, whereas we can't forecast uncertainty. So, we can use forecasting for more tangible risks, and forward planning for those we can't forecast but which remain a possibility. As for those we can't even imagine, the best thing to do is simply accept the things we cannot change. Is that right?
Exactly right. Way to make a long story short. Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.